Hey, it's Rich Cole again.
This is not sustainable. If nothing changes, our federal government is on track to add $1 trillion to the federal debt every 180 days. The cost of this debt is another massive problem. Right now, more than $1 trillion of money that hardworking Americans pay in taxes each year is just going to pay the interest on their federal debt. That's a waste. So I'm very appreciative of what President Trump's doing and what DOJ is doing to try to find all this waste. They're going agency by agency, one by one, and finding out how every single dollar is spent and making sure it's spent in the best interest of the American public. Unfortunately, many Democrats on this committee have expressed outrage. But the outrage is better suited for some of the absurd, wasteful spending they've already uncovered. Let's look at USAID. They provided full funding for al-Qaeda terrorist Anwar al-Awlaki to attend college in Colorado. They gave $310 million to start a Palestinian cement factory, which is used to help Hamas build terror tunnels into Gaza. How can you be this stupid? Another $1.5 million to advance diversity, equity, and inclusion in Serbia's workplaces and business communities. How does that help an American? $47,000 for a transgender opera in Colombia. How does that help America? $2.5 million for electric vehicles in Vietnam. How does that help America?
That is Senator Scott of Florida, going through the waste and abuse, just a few of the examples of what our government has been doing with our money. That's why Elon Musk has set up DOJ, Department of Government Efficiency. And he's brought in some real smart young people to go through everything in the government. And they're clawing back. It's going to be billions and billions and billions of dollars of waste. That is, could you imagine the stuff that's going on there? They're sending DIE classes in, I don't know, Siberia or someplace. It's just absolutely crazy what's going on. But I'm really happy with all that's happening. The border, my God, all that time, Harris and Biden could not stop the flow of illegal immigrants coming in. They just poured on in. They couldn't do it, couldn't do anything about it, blamed it on the Republicans, couldn't do anything. In 1 month, less than a month, in a few weeks, Trump has stopped it. His people, ICE, Border Patrol, have stopped it to almost nothing. And the people are screaming on the other side, but so what? So while that's stopped now they're going through and dragging people out and sending them back to their countries. These are the ones that have committed crimes. So these are illegal immigrants who have committed crimes. That's the first layer that they're going through. When they get through that, they're going to step down and start going after those that got here illegally. And I don't know if they'll take them all or not. They'll probably come up with some plan and decide which ones have to go and which ones can stay. There may be some some steps they have to go through. Frankly, I think that we should make English the legal language of the land. Everybody has to learn it. We won't be printing anything in other languages. That's it. I do believe in school, lower grades, that elementary school, they should start teaching another language. Pick the language. I think Spanish is probably the largest one other than English. So everyone should have a second language. The American students, including me, are stupid in that way. I know no other language. And it would be great if I did. I would love to be able to speak Italian or Spanish or something else, not Russian so much. And German seems kind of harsh to me. The other thing I want to show you is what Elon Musk has warning us if we don't take care of this and what's going to happen to this country. Here you go.
I really want to emphasize to people that this is a very important point. If we don't solve the deficit, there won't be money for medical care. There won't be money for Social Security. We either solve the deficit, or all we'll be doing is paying debt. It's got to be solved, or there's no medical care, there's no Social Security, there's no nothing. That's got to be solved. It's not optional. America will go bankrupt if this is not done. That's why I'm here.
Yeah, and so goes the United States, so goes the rest of the free world. We're all tied in our economies together. It'll even affect China and Russia negatively. Everybody will be hurting badly. It's going to take out all of our Social Security, everything else will be gone if we don't do something about the debt. For those who don't understand when you hear them talking about deficit and debt, the difference is the deficit is the annual amount that we can't we can't cover all of our expenses. The government can't, and it goes over that. An example is we've got let me find it here, 4.7 trillion in tax revenues coming into the government each year, but we are 2 trillion short. That means the cost of running our government is 6.7 trillion. So what happens to that 2 trillion we can't cover? That's called a deficit. And what happens there? We have to borrow more money to cover that, to pay those bills. We've already uh, incurred these expenses. Now we have to pay it. And so that goes to the debt. The deficit increases the debt. So we've got to stop the deficit somehow in order to start reducing the debt. So what they're talking about here is they're going to come up with $1 trillion or so, and maybe more each year. There's so much there. I don't know how long it's going to take them to find it all. But they're talking about, of that $1 trillion or so, taking 20% and write dividend checks to us, to all of us, to show that we're involved, because that was our money anyway that they wasted, as government officials. And then they're going to take 20% toward the debt, and the other 60% will go toward covering expenses, reducing deficit, and so forth. In the meantime, what are we doing about not incurring future deficits? That's where we're laying off people. We're firing. We have so many people. I forget what we've got in, probably close to 1 million employees in the government. And we just got to reduce it. They have never reduced the size of the government. It expands. Republicans have been guilty of this too, so it's not just the Democrats. But the Democrats seem to be worse. But speaking of Republicans, I remember back when Dick Cheney was the vice president. Dick Cheney, a Republican, said deficits don't matter. Well, they do matter. And at that time, I think we only had about 3 or 4 trillion in debt. I did some notes here that said 4.7 trillion in tax income for the government. That's how much the government earns each year. And it's got 36 trillion in debt. If we take that down and say, what if you earned $75,000 a year? Your debt would be 2.1 million. You're earning 75,000. How are you going to pay off 2.1 million? You don't have the 75,000 to spend. You're probably using all of that. You may be even borrowing money yourself. So how are you going to pay off debt like that? That's where the government is. Just think of it in those terms. It's horrible where we are. Well, I try to keep my podcast to under 10 minutes, mainly for I don't want people to be bored, and TikTok only accepts videos up to 10 minutes. So I apparently ran my mouth so much this time that I have enough for 2 podcasts. So I'm going to split them in 2. This is the end of part 1. And see you on part 2.